Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Live Free, Ride Free. I'm your host, Rupert Isaacson, New York Times bestselling author of The Horse Boy and The Long Ride Home. Before I jump in with today's guest, I want to say a huge thank you to you, our audience, for helping to make this happen. I have a request. If you like what we do here, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, tell a friend. It really, really helps us to make the progress. Find out about our certification courses, online video libraries, books, and other courses, please go to rupertisaacson.com. So now let's jump in. Welcome back to Live Free, Ride Free. I've got Mario Contreras with me. You may not know him, but you might well know what he does because you may have gone there as a tourist without ever knowing he was behind the scenes. If you've ever heard of or gone to the chain of medieval themed entertainment in the USA called Medieval Times, it's kind of an iconic thing. You will have seen horses doing incredibly good, like impeccably good dressage in the manner of the Renaissance to the Baroque. And I remember the first time I went there and I didn't quite know what to expect. I thought, oh, it'll be all right, probably be a bit kitschy, fine, I'm up for it, and someone took me there and I sat there and the horses came out and I was absolutely blown away. I was like, but the standard here this is crazy good. And I was sort of looking around at the crowd and they're like, they don't know what they're seeing. Like they don't understand like how ridiculously amazing. Like I saw someone riding 3 huge caprioles, one after the other, boom, 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 with ease and relaxation. I'm like, and there's people like, having a beer and talking to each other. I'm like, you don't realize what you're seeing. I'm like, no, you don't realize what you're seeing. Anyway, so I've got the man sort of behind all of this, Mario Contreras from the Contreras family. And he's got a really interesting story to tell about how all this was built, how it's maintained, what are the life lessons, and, what he's learned along the way and what we can learn from him. So Mario, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Tell us about yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast. It's a privilege to me to be here with you today talking. And I'm probably going to just tell you a little bit about my story. I was born and raised in Mexico. I'm the 3rd generation of horse trainers in my family. My grandfather, Don Marcial Contreras, my dad, Jose Trinidad Contreras, and of course, all my brothers that are horse trainers, my nephews that are continue to follow the the tradition to be with our horses. So my dad actually started in Mexico with my grandfather, and then he moved on to Mexico City, close to Mexico City in el Estado de Mexico, where he continued and started. He was actually the founder of the Escuela of Jinetes Domecq with Don Antonio Ariza back in the day. So that's what my family comes from with horses. If you ever hear about Brandy Presidente and Don Pedro in Mexico to promote the brandy back in the day, it was throughout the Andalusians that Don Antonio Ariza Canadilla brought to Mexico to promote the brandy. So each fair back in Mexico, they used to promote the brandy with the horses, bringing the show with Alta Escuela and all that. And then through time, as you know, thank you to Don Antonio Ariza, now Mexico, we have our own breed, which is the Caballo Azteca. So after a while, of course, we started growing up. I never had the opportunity to be in that show. Of course, my dad, who was the founder in 1968. And then after that, my brothers, Marcial Contreras, Jorge Contreras, Trino Contreras, my cousins that also joined the show, Ruben Contreras, Roberto Contreras, my cousin El Portugués, El Cordobés, that they were the foundation of that school. And then, of course, through time, after a while, when my brother Marcial initiated working with Medieval Times, 1986, that's when he was there for a few years, and then I came in 1990. He's the one who gave me the opportunity, along with Don Victor de Lara, who was there at the time. I started in California Medieval Times in 1990. And then, of course, I started, working and learning as much as I could.
Well, you've made that all sound rather easy, but I know it wasn't. Let's just go back to the beginning, and you also haven't told us, how you got to the US, etc. But let's start back in Mexico.
Yeah,
So, for people that are listening or watching, it's really interesting. The dressage world in the USA is a really weird one for me as a European because they look to Europe for their inspiration, I suppose, either usually to Germany, Northern Europe, or they look to the Iberian Peninsula. They look to Spain and Portugal, sometimes both. But what very, very few American dressage riders that I've ever met do is look to Mexico. I was fortunate to live for many years in Texas, and I met you, Mario, because we used to help show for a very big Spanish horse breeder, Rancho del Lago, there outside of Austin. So I met Mario at the big breed shows. And of course,
that
there's
was the International Andalusian and Lusitano Horse Association.
indeed up there in Fort
Correct.
Worth. And it was one of the only places I saw in the USA where Hispanic and Anglo horsemen got together and learned from each other and created culture together.
Correct.
Everywhere else I went, it was completely separated. And as you know, Mario, when you go to a show like that in the USA, you see these master horse trainers, most of whom are Mexican or Tejano, or some of them born in the US, but many of them from outside. And anyone in their right mind would go, I want to learn from those guys. How do I learn from those guys? And in the town we lived in, Elgin, Texas, just outside of Austin, there would be a rodeo. There's a rodeo ground. There would be an Anglo rodeo, and there would be a charreada. There would be a Mexican rodeo. But you would
Correct.
never see any Anglos at the charreada, and you wouldn't see any Mexicans, unless they were working, at the Anglo rodeo. It was like two separate worlds. And I remember as a European going, this is so bananas. Like, there is all this wealth of horsemanship. The conquistadors came over in the 16th century, brought the high school riding, the doma vaquera, the classical riding with them, brought it very quickly into North America, and it's been living and breathing there for 600 years. Why wouldn't we learn? So tell us a little bit about the horse culture in Mexico and the horse culture in Mexico that you grew up in. Are you from Guadalajara?
Well, let me tell you a funny story.
Yeah.
My whole family it was born in Teocuitatlan de Corona, Jalisco, which is probably
Yeah.
like a 40-minute drive from Guadalajara downtown.
Okay.
And when my whole family moved to Estado de Mexico, which is Texcoco, I was born there in
In
Texcoco. But
Mexico City.
correct. So a
Right.
couple of days later, because everybody was from Guadalajara, legally I'm from Guadalajara, but I
Got
was
it.
born. I was born in Texcoco.
So
Um,
here's a question quickly on this. Is
yeah,
Guadalajara a particular center of the horse culture
that is
in
correct.
Mexico, and why?
You know what? I think because it's for the tradition. We were born with a horse. Of course, now horses are kind of like a luxury. But back in the day, it was horses were everything before the machinery came into place, before the tractors, before the cars. I think all Mexico was used to having a horse. I think, as you know, throughout the history, horses are the only animals who have, continue to be in our lives. And to me, I'm so grateful to have it in my life. Talking about, back in the day when my father used to be a charro and do all the chores around the barn in Mexico. It was everything with horses. But when he met Don Antonio Ariza and start mixing his charro stuff with the Alta Escuela, that's when you start seeing horses or trainers back in the day to start teaching horses how to not just to do the lados, spinning, and the slicing, which is in charrería, lassoing the horses, I'm sorry, the bulls and all that stuff, or the wild horses. So eventually you start seeing more like show. Like eventually, of course, everything became competitor, which is nowadays you see competitions, alta escuela, charrería, but mixing it was, very difficult back in the day to see, especially, we Latinos as Mexicans, we love our tradition. But I think it's always important to be open, have an open mind to learn everything. That's why I always emphasize to to educate and teach and learn as much as I can from anybody. My dad, when he started mixing his charro movements with Alta Escuela, when we used to go to parades, to presentations, to the fair, La Feria de Texcoco in Mexico, which is one of the most important ones. And then through time, when they start promoting the Brandy Presidente, they went to every single fair in Mexico to promote the fair, but with beautiful white Andalusians. So I grew up with Andalusians. They are in my heart like you have no idea.
Mm.
I bond with them. And nowadays, I like I said, I have a very open-minded. I work with any horse. I learn from horses that people told me that they weren't gonna be good for nothing. And we get to click, and then we transfer them into the horses that the owners want them to be. But with that, it becomes you have to have that skill, you have to have that patience, and you have to have a good understanding of the horse's ability. I think that all horses can do everything, just like people, but not with the same ability, not with the same. Some horses and some people are extremely gifted, but you as a coach, you have to search and give them time and really look for the proper exercises, and more than anything, have the patience for everything and teach people to have patience for themselves. Throughout the years, I was just a writer. When I came to the US, when I was with my dad for so many years and my brothers, I always thought that I knew everything. And then I started getting into competition. That was in, that's when I really felt that it was important for me to continue with my education. And as always, I never wanted to be one of those that I know everything and what I do is the right thing to do. You always learn something. You go to different barns, you go to different countries, and you go to different states here in the US. I still go to clinics and learn as much as you can, even though you hear the same story sometimes. Like that kind of confirms that you're going and you're on the right path.
Mm. Tell me how not everyone who's watching this or listening to this will understand what is a charro, what is charreada, and what is Alta Escuela. Can you explain those as if someone had no horse knowledge at all?
Well, charreada is a Mexican tradition, and it's actually, we are very proud to have our discipline in Mexico, charrería. And it's kind of like it's like working with at the barn, working with the horses, working with the cows, working at the ranch. But charrería, we now in the association, of course, it has developed in a way where you, as a rider and with your abilities as a rider, as a trainer, you show the best of the horse being in the ring. And right now, I think charrería is super popular in Mexico in a way that is not just for daddy. It's not for the old guys. It's for the girls, the little kids. It's like a family thing. If you ever go to one of the competitions or just a traditional little fiesta in Mexico, you're gonna see that everybody goes. It's like a family thing. And I think that's one of the things that I love the most. That it has to be, it's not just for ladies. It's not just for older guys or a guy thing. It's for everybody. So the tradition in Mexico is like when you see, if you ever went to one of them, you see that there is the traditional, mariachi band, the banda de viento, tacos, tortas, all the food. It's like a family thing. It's like a huge fiesta. So, and I'm very, very proud to have that in my country, even though, I never got the opportunity to be a charro. I have try it, to lasso the bulls and all that stuff. But I think my heart always went into learning as much as I could with Alta Escuela and dressage, which is my passion nowadays.
So let's talk. So Alta Escuela translates to high school. Again, for the people who just really don't understand horses, what does that mean when it comes to horse training? What is high school horse training?
Well, high school and Alta Escuela, to me, it has helped me a lot, not just to become a better writer, but it's like the discipline and the detail that you have to put into it to really connect with the horse and to have precision as much as you can. Perfect doesn't exist, but I think through time, through practice, and sometimes, oh, that was, you were lucky and good luck. Well, I think that pays off with a lot of repetitions, with a lot of training, with sometimes you don't have to work the horse for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. It's only a couple minutes until the horse really connects and understanding. So precision riding, that's why when you combine Alta Escuela with dressage, of course, Alta Escuela back in the day, teaching the airs about the ground when horses were thought to be killing machines, and on were like, to really advance, to move the troops, from one side to the other, doing legios or half passes and pushing people around. And of course, eventually, teaching the horses how to do the high school maneuvers, the Spanish walk, to get people out of the way, to get to do corvettes, to, you
Jump on
jump on
people.
top of people, and doing caprioles, getting people from behind, teaching all these horses to do that. Of course, nowadays it looks fancy. It looks, a lot of people used to call it circus. I think, to me, one of the most, inspiration, things for me to continue to keep going, back in the day, now, it was very hard to try to find a video of the Real Escuela Andaluza del Arte Ecuestre, to find a book or something to see from the Spanish riding school, from the School of Samoa in France, to, the school in Portugal. Nowadays, all you have to do is just Google it.
Go on
All you
YouTube.
have to do is just, sign up in all these platforms, that Facebook, Instagram, and you can see these beautiful horses doing perfect cabrioles. You can see all this cool stuff that back in the day was so difficult to do. So now, thanks to internet and, the connection that we have all over the world, it's so easy for me, especially to my students, to, sit down for an hour and watch videos and explain the different disciplines. Alta Escuela, I think, to me, I continue to practice it throughout medieval times, because that's what we do at medieval times. We don't just teach horses to do the medieval games. Every single horse that you will see when you come next month to our show, every single horse and every single rider, I train them from scratch. Most of these guys, they're either very athletic or they're actors. And our horses, back in the day when we first opened our first castle in Kissimmee, Florida, which is still there, medieval times, in 1983. We used to import our horses from Spain. Nowadays, medieval times is pretty big. We have 10 medieval times, 9 in the US and 1 in Canada. And when you come to see our show, and you're going to see, okay, that, you see thousands of people screaming, and the lights, that sound, and horses are listening to the rider. So it's, like I said, it's hard to transfer or transmit that to the riders or to the horses. But I think when you have this program of training, I think putting the program into place is one of the most important things, to make sure that sometimes when you come to our castle, you're going to see riders that have been with me for around 15 years training with me. And then you're going to see riders that they've been only with me for like around 5 years. And then you see people that they never touch a horse in their life. And then through time, you start teaching them all these things from different schools. Every time I get the opportunity to go to a clinic, I bring it to the castle. I bring it to my riding school over here in Maple Park at the gate at 45. That's the new barn that I've been, showing and teaching for the last 10 years. And to me, like I said, it's important to continue to educate myself, to always have an open minded, to try new things if necessary. But at the end of the day, as a trainer, you always put what works for you and what is easier for you to develop as a trainer, as a coach. And, sometimes you can coach people and you tell them the same thing for the last 6 months. And then somebody comes along in a clinic and they're like, oh, it just clicked to me the way he said it. Back in the day when I first came to the US, I did not speak a word of English. In order for me to communicate with people, I have to go to school and learn the language. I still have little problems here and there. My accent is not the greatest, but I try to do my best to communicate in a way that people can understand me, as well as the horses. One of the hardest things to do, teach people timing and feeling. You can just put your hands like that and transfer it and wait for a miracle to happen. Sometimes you give a lesson, you say, that was it. Do you feel that? Well, sometimes you are not really aware of what you're doing, but a couple days later, a couple months later, a couple years later, it'll say, now I know what you're talking about. So that timing, that feeling, when you achieve that consistency, it's a great feeling. It's a payoff, let's say.
So, okay, why would you take people who've never sat on a horse before to train them up for a show that requires a really high standard of riding? Surely you would be looking for people who already come with a lot of equestrian skill. What would be the logic there of taking
Well,
somebody
you
from
know
scratch?
what? Through medieval times, we always, every time we hire people, we do castings. So, as you see, our show requires actors. So, most people are actors or very athletic. So, when we do these castings and we interview these people, we always look for people that has a good background on. They have to be animal lovers. They have to have a good, they have to like to work out and exercise all the time, because that's going to really help us out to achieve what we're trying to achieve with them in the future. Out of 100 people that we interview, maybe 5 will cut it to get into medieval times. And then through that, we go through the whole test, and then we go through the process of training. And in order for them to be in the show, let's say as a knight, as a squire, they have to be involved with horses. Same thing that when I hire people, like right now at the castle, just for stables, I hire people that loves horses, hire people that has a little bit of background with horses. And eventually those people become, in the future, they become either knights or squires, or they can become assistant trainers or trainers in the future for our company.
Okay. So there's a real career ladder there.
That is correct. And then I think one of the beauties is that we have the ability, and that's why I love medieval times. Medieval times gives you the opportunity to grow. If you really like horses, if you really like acting, if you really like to be in the spotlight, medieval times is it. To me, medieval times has give me and has make me into what I am. And I'm very grateful. I love the company. I still, try to do my best every time people comes to a show, you know, out of medieval times in Chicago, it's actually the biggest castle of all. We feed 1,500 people per show. So most castles are 1,000, 1,100, but medieval times in Chicago is the biggest. So to me, being in front of people and performing with the horses, it brings me back to life, and teaching our horses and our riders. When you see a horse when they first come out of our breeding farm for medieval times in Chapel Creek Ranch in Texas, they come green. We consider mature horses when they are 3, 4, and 5 years old. When it's time for us to retire one of our horses, which we do retire horses in the ages between 18 in our program, 18 to 20 years old, and then we get a new horse, we start them from scratch. We have our program at the ranch where horses are, with they halter break them, they start lunging them, they start kind of getting the horses in shape by walk, track, canter, both directions. And the round pen, we put the saddle, we put the bridle for the first time. And then when they come to medieval times, we start and as a trainer and as a coach, I decide, for example, in my castle, I decide what they're going to be doing in the show. We usually start with easy stuff, doing the carousel, doing the medieval games. And then after that, we start deciding what they're going to be doing for them in the future. Caprioles, the hind walk, the Spanish walk, the passage, the piaffe, the solo, which is one of the most difficult routines in our show. We
What is the
combine
solo?
the solo. It's a combination Alta Escuela with Dressage. In the Alta
Okay.
Escuela, we do, of course, a walk, trot, canter, and a collected gait. We do flying changes. We do canter pirouettes. We do piaffe, passage, Spanish walk, levades, flying changes, bow, and something is an artistic routine. In this case, well, I'm not going to tell you the whole thing about the show, but I want you to come and see it, so you
Yeah.
are excited when you see it. But
And you often
it's
put airs above the ground in that too, I think, do you
that is
not?
correct.
Yeah.
That is correct. Hmm.
So, which were these old battle moves that have now been sort of formalized into art, one could say, equestrian
Yeah.
art.
So I don't know
But
if you know, but now, so I'm sorry to interrupt. Now every 5 years we change our show in medieval times. So every
okay,
5 years we have a fresh new show. We change, of course, the choreography, the costumes, the lights, a new storyline. And right now it's been a year since the new show. So right now when you come, you're gonna see the new show.
fantastic. Okay, so I want to. There's a bunch of questions here.
Yeah.
But first, how does we've established that you were born into a horseman's family that had come out of that horsey area of Guadalajara, Jalisco, which is a horse hub in Mexico. And then your dad got involved with this promotion company which featured Andalusian horses, and you were fortunate enough to grow and learn with that. But then, how does a Mexican boy, even with those skills, how does a Mexican boy in the 1980s, with no English, find his way into the US and into this medieval times franchise? How did that happen? Tell us about that early transitional time for you.
Well, when I was in Mexico, of course, riding with my dad and my brothers all the time, I think it's in our blood already with the horses. So when I came to, actually, I used to sing a lot when I was little. I still sing, but now I just kind of do it for fun. I do more
Uh-huh.
karaoke than anything. But when I came to the US and my brother gave me the opportunity, along with Victor de Lara, to work for Medieval Times, that's when everything came back to life with the horses. We When we were in Mexico, my parents sold the barn and everything in Texcoco and we moved to the city for me to go to school. Believe it or not, but that was a mistake. I was born like almost 20 years later. My brothers, some of them already married. I actually grew up with my nephews.
Okay.
And so when I came to the US, my brother gave me the opportunity to work for Medieval Times. I started working with Medieval Times, and when they gave me the opportunity to start riding horses, I could do things that other people took him a year to ride, to
Hmm.
do. I'm sorry. And when I felt that, I don't know, I was hooked. I was hooked, and then from there, I tried to learn as much as I could. I started learning English. I worked with my brother and Victor alone for many, many years. I will say probably 2 or 3 years later, I have the opportunity to become not just the assistant horse trainer, but a head horse trainer here at Medieval Times in Chicago. I was so involved also with fighting. I also learned how to fight. I was a knight for around 3 or 4 years, and it was a lot of fun. I loved it, and everything had to do with being in the spotlight, working with horses, and being in the entertainment world. I love to entertain.
Was your brother your main teacher there?
You know what, my brother? Yes, he still is. I respect and I love him. And one of the things that I always gonna say about my brother Marcial is that even though I was his brother, he never gave me a room to slack. He never gave me an opportunity to say, "Oh, you know what? He's my little brother. Let him get away
Yeah.
with it, being late or not." You have no idea how I was pushed by him, and I even nowadays I still go and try to maintain just like my dad's legacy, to continue to be a hardworking person and try to be as good as I can be with what I have. Sometimes just like anything in life, you can be a really good writer or you can be a really good trainer, but if you don't have the horse to develop your skills, it's
Yeah.
it's going to be very hard, or vice versa. Sometimes you get a horse that I have had horses, and I still get them once in a while, that are misunderstood, horses that nobody can deal with them, horses that have been ruined because they don't understand their personality, they don't get into their mind or their brain properly, and these horses are get ruined by people that claim to be trainers or very
Mm.
good, and and I feel that you just have to really spend the time in a way where in the future it pays off. And once you connect with horses that people thought that were not good, I have had the opportunity to get horses. I'm kind of like his last option before they go to the kill pen
Yeah.
and turn them around. and turn these horses into beautiful creatures. But unfortunately, these horses are not just for anybody. You have to have the right person to work with these horses in a way that I always tell people when they bring horses to me, the culture in Mexico was you bring the horse and train him. They also say we can be finished the horse in a year and then you can take him. Well, the horse is not the only one who has to learn and go to school. That's why I always continue to promote education, not just for the horse, but the riders as well. Whoever's going to be working with the horse in the future is the one that has to be there. And I think the beauty, if like I told you with my brother, he made me clean stalls like for so many years and brush horses and shampoo horses and braid horses. When you feel like you're already a trainer that, I don't have to do that. That's past my time. No, you know what? I still do it. I still do things that people think like, well, aren't you the head trainer? Yeah, that's fine, but that doesn't take anything from you. I think one of the
No,
things that,
absolutely.
yeah,
And I think there's a great value when you are in
correct,
the leadership role of
correct,
showing that you do not mind doing the basic tasks, and that
correct. Getting your hands dirty. Yep,
indeed, and also showing that this is how you learn horsemanship, because
correct,
this is of course where you build your relationship with your horse, is when
correct,
you're standing next to them, washing them, brushing them, getting to
correct.
know them, understanding their moods and their needs. Which leads me to another question. So you and I both, I think, share a similar philosophy when it comes to horse training, which is that I train everything from the ground before I put a rider on, and
Correct.
what we call the in-hand work,
Correct.
including all the work in the canter and even the flying changes and all that stuff. I'll do it walking next to the horse, and I did a deep dive, a deep sort of apprenticeship and education to learn how to do this, because I just observed that the people that did this always seemed to have horses that were not just reliable but really happy, that
Yeah.
clear in their minds. I know that you are a master trainer of the in-hand work, and not just a rider. You are a master, Mario.
Well, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
I
But
have I have seen you, and
well,
yeah. So talk to us now about the value of the ground training and the in-hand training. Most people think of it, or of horse training, as just something you do from the saddle, or at least the complex stuff you would do from the saddle. Talk to us about the in-hand work, the long reining, all of this. How do you do it? Why is it important? What does it give you?
no, I think the most important thing of this is building the horse's confidence and to build this trust. Once you build that, you can do anything. But more than anything, when you do everything in hand, I think that's the perfect way to teach the brain of the horse to understand you, because at the end of the day, you got to talk his language for him to understand what you want. A lot of people, for example, if you're going to teach a piaffe or a Spanish, well, let's say piaffe, everybody loves piaffe, right? So how do you teach it? Most people, a lot of people teaches it just by, going from a working trot to a collected trot into half steps into piaffe on place, right? That's fine. To me, I can do it. But to me, it's a lot harder, not just for me, but I find it harder for the horse to get it when you have somebody on top of you.
I agree, because they
When
have
you
to
do it,
figure out
yes,
weight. Yeah, yeah.
correct. But when you do it from the ground, the horse has this freedom to not to get the wrong cues from the rider. When we are bad riders and we still don't have, I think to become a great rider, you have to be extremely quiet and steady and relaxed on top of the horse. Now, if you do it from the ground with nothing on, just a little halter and a little rope, you just touch the hind leg. Let's say that you are on the left side of the horse and you just tap the left hind. You just teach something very simple, just like putting a fly on the horse. And when he feels that touch, that's like a fly landing on the horse, and the horse out of a sudden he picks it up. And then you praise him by you either give him, I use a lot of petting. I once in a while I do use sugar cubes. I use pieces of apples, pieces of carrots, something to motivate the brain to say, why did I get that? So train the brain to respond to something that I ask. At the end of the day, what you're really doing is asking a question. And of course, you want the correct answer. But sometimes you touch the horse, and the horse in the beginning, especially when they're extremely sensitive, what do? They jump, they kick, they rear, they move side to side, they go backwards, they go sideways, they go forward. They do everything but At the end of the day, you want something so simple that is just pick up your hind left. Just pick it up. I don't want anything. Just pick it up. Eventually, when you start teaching that program of training, every single little cue means something. And most people, I don't know if it happens to you when you start teaching, people loves to talk, people loves to move around. So all that movement creates a cue because they don't understand that being quiet with their body, that's their language. And so if you start quiet and project being assertive, nothing is wrong. I think you know that by nature, when you move around so fast, you trigger that behavior like, oh, what's going on? Somebody's gonna eat me. So let's run away. Well, you have to build that trust and make sure the horses are extremely connected with you. So eventually they start understanding. After a while, you tap not just the hind left, now the hind right, and now tap the front left, not the front right, then being quiet. Eventually, you put that together. And of course, like you said, at the castle or anywhere, when we go and just do, regardless if it's a competition or exhibition, I think good riding is good riding. Having a good understanding of the horse, depending on the levels that you are with the horse or the time that you've been working with the horse. But it's important to teach that from the ground, so eventually you transfer it to your riding aids.
When one sees the horses in medieval times, it's quite interesting. You know, I see a lot of equestrian shows. A lot of friends of mine, you know, work in or are trainers in, or are even producers of equestrian shows. Sometimes you look at them and the horses are not so happy. Sometimes you look at them and the horses are really happy. One of the things I've noticed with the medieval times horses is they're happy. As a horseman, I can see, oh, these are happy horses. They're clear in their job. They're happy in their job. They're enjoying the show. When people are trying to get together with horses to put on shows, whether it's in competition or whether it's just for fun or for their art.
Exhibition.
Exhibit. Yeah. What for you is the real key to making it really enjoyable for a horse? So it's not stressful. So the horse doesn't feel under pressure to perform, that the horse comes with his heart and actually wants to perform as much as the human does. How do we achieve this?
That's a very good question. For example, I have on my training facility with MC Horse Training, the gate of 45, and of course, medieval times. I think building a program is important. Putting the program together. For example, at medieval times, I have 25 horses right now. It's a full house. So how many horses do I use for the show? Usually 12 or 13. That all the same horses do the same show every day? Well, it's like you eating tacos all the time or eating hamburgers all the time. Can you do it? Yes, you can, but it gets bored. It gets like, right? So that's why it's important to put the program together. I mix the horses all the time. I cross-train them all the time, so they are not used to the same thing. All horses, dependent, of course, on their ability, but you got to make sure that you give them a day off or 2 days off. All horses have to go out every single day. That's part of the ritual of training. Turnouts are super important. Making sure that they get their turnout. For example, we start our day with, of course, we give our first meal at 7 o'clock in the morning. After they get their meal, all horses get out, and they are pretty much outside all day.
Where do they go out when they're in? Because a lot of, like, medieval time Chicago, it's in a very built up area. Where do you have to turn them out?
Well, when you come to Chicago, we're very privileged in our castle because we actually have the paddocks in the back of the castle.
Okay, so you've got
outside.
fields out back,
Yeah,
right?
there is a couple medieval times that they do not have paddocks on the outside, but those medieval times, they have a huge, beautiful barn not too far from the castle where horses go and they get their, let's say, their little 2 or 3 days out of the week to go, and then
They'll be rotated out to the country.
we rotate them all the time so they can go their time out.
Got it.
So, but that's important. And that's part of every single medieval times program. So here in Chicago, we're very lucky that we don't have to, put the horse in the trailer every day, which I wouldn't mind if I had to do it. I will do it all the time. But what I'm saying is that when everything is right there, like in this castle in Chicago, we have our paddocks right next to the castle. And if you ever show up in the morning, you're gonna see that that's part of the program to turn horses out. Even when the days are super beautiful, of course, during the winter, we don't work outside because it's so cold or there is snow. But we're so privileged also that we work indoors, and we have two arenas inside the castle, which inside the castle we have air conditioning and heating. So it doesn't matter if it's 20 below outside, horses we were able to work like if we would be in a 68-degree environment, perfect for riding indoors all the time. And our stables are state of the art stables where horses are being taken care of from 7 o'clock in the morning to 10 p.m. Even when we leave the castle, security goes every single hour and check the horses to make sure that they are doing fine. So, and that's that program. With training, let's say a regular day. Right now, we are in busy season, which we have our first show for the kids, and it's a smaller version of the big show in the evening, which we have the morning show. It's an educational matinee show at 11 o'clock. Right nowadays, in this summertime, we have usually Thursday and Friday, which is our small show in the mornings. And then in the evening, we have a regular show, especially in this castle, around 6:45 that we have a regular show, which is a 2-hour show. And that's right before that, let's say that we start our day when we arrive around 3 o'clock with all the guys, the new knights or the guys, we practice some of the routines that we need, or we start schooling the new horses for the show, where we put lights, sound, music, or very simple, continue with the education that they started at the barn, at the ranch, with just lunging, teaching them how to walk dry canter. But we start introducing lights, sound, music, the guys practicing on the side with the swords and the sound of the shields hitting the sword and all those little things that if you see some of these horses, in the beginning, it's very scary for them. But I think it's where, to me, and to us at medieval times, it doesn't matter if it takes us, I don't know, some horses are so good that in 3 months, they're doing little pieces in the show. And there is some horses that will take up to a year to do little parts in the show. And it doesn't really matter. As long as the horse is comfortable, when you come next month and see your show, you're going to see that you see the finished product with the riders and the horses where they already are extremely comfortable to go in front of a 1,500 kids screaming from the top of their lungs, and horses will be just listening to the rider, even just to do simple medieval games, simple, our little carousel, which is, I find that it's really good for the horses to be introduced to the show, where they go with other horses and they feel comfortable as a herd to go with the others, with the flags, your helmet, your armor with it, your cape, which is really long, and horses get to enjoy it. But it's important for me to see when horses are stressed out or when horses are not really ready for the show yet. So, and just like I said, I think time and the right program for each horse, it's important to get things going.
You talked about cross training. What's cross training in your context with horses?
Well, most trainers are really, they just, let's say that in my case, I'm just a high school trainer. I'm just an Alta Escuela trainer, right? Well, in order for me to put, like, for example, our show at medieval times, we have to mix all these disciplines together to put it together, which is, of course, the main one, which is dressage. And then, of course, Alta Escuela, which we add the airs about the ground. We also add the stunts to do all the jumping off the horse, falling off the horse, doing the rollouts, the flyouts, when you get hit on the joust, then you have to throw the shield, throw the lance, and, push yourself off the saddle correctly. Everything starts standing. Everything starts, from scratch until, like I said, these guys that never even touch a horse in their life, eventually they become pros. When you come and see your show, you're going to see whoever becomes the champion that day on that show is going to take at least 3 years of, training to achieve that spot. And if you see these guys, they make it look easy, but there's a lot of training behind that. And I I always feel that it's important in order for you to become a great rider, which we all are writers eventually. You develop yourself into a coach or a trainer. But in order for you to become a great writer, you must learn to ride different horses, different mindsets, different bríos, where horses, sometimes you're like, oh, this one is a pistol. This one is super sensitive. You know what? This one, I put my leg on and it seems like nothing bothers him. So learning how to ride different horses, I think is crucial for you to become a great rider. Eventually through time, when you put these horses together and these riders together, you're going to see that in the beginning, just like horses, just like riders, we are intimidated, like, oh, you know what, I'm going to ride a new horse, and you don't know. But I think if you have the right program and the right coach to take you and I'm going to tell you, I'm a very pushy coach. I want results. I'm not the kind of coach that is going to have you on the launch line for for 3 years. I'm not the kind of coach that will is going to spend the time just for you to be a training level rider for 5 years. I want results. I want you to move forward. I want horses to become, of course, always the goal is going to be to become a Grand Prix rider, to have a Grand Prix horse. And, I think it's very important to do it in a way where physically and mentally you have to be prepared for that. Putting too much pressure, I'm a very pushy coach, but I know when to back off as well, not just with the horses, but riders. I think the new generation of riders lately, they're a little sensitive. You can't push them because we cry. Oh, he doesn't like me. But I think that's important, why it's important to have briefings, meetings, little mini clinics at your own place with yourself, with your people, so they understand how you think, what you really want from them, and how far they got to go between 6 months, a year, 2 years. I think dressage to me has been very helpful to educate our new generation, because going from, let's say, green as grass, just, groom the horse, clean the stall, brush him, and eventually putting the saddle on, and eventually, start doing little lunging lessons, just you and the horse and the rider, and always having these people right next to you. So sometimes they will catch things that you don't even explain, just very simple, holding the reins, or holding the launch line, or holding the whip, or how to use the whip in a way that you are not just scaring the horse. I usually call tapping or touching the horse. When you touch him or you tap him, touching or petting the horse with the whip. I always think that it's important to use the whip and and every single tool that you use to familiarize the horse with it, so they start trusting you big time. So when you get on the horse, I have worked with horses throughout my career where people tells me that the horse is ready to learn piaffe, and these horses are already 12 years old, 13 years old. And then you approach them with the whip just to touch them, and they want nothing to do with it. Me, you'll see me working with horses that are 3, 4 years old, already, getting familiar with the tools or the equipment that I'll be working with them for the rest of their lives. They must trust you when you approach them, and you must teach the people how to approach them properly. So, horses are beautiful, but they can be also dangerous if you don't read them properly, or if you don't approach them properly, or if you don't use the tools properly. Your spurs, your little whip to give him little commands, or to create a little more energy, to create a little more impulsion. All those things that you have to always keep in mind. The more you learn, the more stuff you have in your head. I have people that sometimes they read 2 or 3 books at once, and then when it comes to they're so confused, they never know where to start. Same thing happens to the horses when they are jumping from trainer to trainer to trainer to trainer. And then when it comes to you, they are already so out of it that they want nothing to do with humans. And sometimes I have to start just from scratch. Just put them in the round pen and just sit there with them for a little bit, and they come down and they start building that trust.
Absolutely. No, I agree. Any horse that comes to me, I always effectively start them from scratch, even if I know they have a high level of education. Honestly, if I need to get to know them, because if I feel that if I just get on and start demanding things.
Correct.
As you know, if you followed any of my work, I'm an autism dad, and we have a whole career before this podcast in helping people with neurodivergence, either who are professionals in the field. Are you a therapist? Are you a caregiver? Are you a parent? Or are you somebody with neurodivergence? When my son Rowan was diagnosed with autism in 2004, I really didn't know what to do. So I reached out for mentorship, and I found it through an amazing adult autistic woman who's very famous, Dr. Temple Grandin. And she told me what to do. And it's been working so amazingly for the last 20 years that not only is my son basically independent, but we've helped countless thousands of others reach the same goal, working in schools, working at home, working in therapy settings. If you would like to learn this cutting edge neuroscience-backed approach, it's called movement method. You can learn it online. You can learn it very, very simply. It's almost laughably simple. The important thing is to begin. Let yourself be mentored as I was by Dr. Grandin and see what results can follow. Go to this website, newtrailslearning.com. Sign up as a gold member. Take the online movement method course. It's in 40 countries. Let us know how it goes for you. We really want to know. We really want to help people like me, people like you out there live their best life, to live free, ride free, see what happens. I don't really have that right. We don't know each other yet. So why don't we just start from the very basic? It'll just be an accelerated process, but why don't we do that? Because I would do that with a human. Why wouldn't I do that with a horse? It's interesting though, in the old masters books, when one reads the real old masters like Pluvinel from the 17th century or La Guérinière from the 18th century, even some of the later ones, they all tell us this. They say, take your beginner rider, and this sounds like what you're doing, and it's certainly what we do at my place. Take your beginner rider, and on the first day, put them on one of your best horses in the piaffe, either at the shoulder, you're at the shoulder, or in the long reins, or in the pillars, if you know how to do the pillars, and let them feel how it should feel. And
Correct.
then little by little bring them up to the level of that horse. Of course, the only way I would think that you can create the riders who are coming in off the street to be so good in that 3-year time frame is, of course, you are matching them with these extremely good horses that will also show them.
I think you have say something very important. In order for me to achieve what you just said, that's exactly what I do at medieval times. I train all these guys in our schoolmasters, and through time, believe it or not, these guys become an exceptional riders. And these
Absolutely.
riders, and in the future, those are the guys nowadays. You'll meet a few of them. That those are the ones who help me to train the young horses, the horses that has no training. But I think that's what you just said. It's extremely important to build their confidence. I think you have seen or has heard that a lot of people, when they have horse stories, they're like, no, I don't like horses. I got thrown off by one when I was little. Well, because he was not introduced to the horses the right way. So now they hate him for no reason. So, but when you're like, well, you were on the wrong horse, or whoever teacher was not thinking and didn't do it properly. But eventually, I think same way, I have turned a lot of people around having that bad experience with horses back in the day. And I have I'm so proud that I actually have one guy that is one of the top trainers at medieval times that used to be that way, and now he's doing well. And he's being very successful because I changed his mind how to see horses nowadays.
Right. And of course, you produced horses that helped to change his mind. You
That
talk
is
about
correct.
creating feel and timing. Of course, who's really going to show us this? The horse.
Well, it's not, sometimes we always try to take the credit. Oh, I'm the trainer, I'm the teacher, I'm the coach. And no, I think the best teachers and coaches are the horses. I think it's important for us to learn to listen to them and see them. But the real trainers and coaches are the horses, believe it or not.
So tell me this. So I was once giving I actually asked a top German guy to come in. He was actually a representative of the FN, which is, it's like the USDF in America or so, in Germany, to come to Texas and give us a clinic. And he gave us the sort of standard German clinic, make the horse go forward a lot. And He then saw me giving a lesson because I had some clients. I had to give a couple of lessons, and I was giving a lesson to a beginner, and I put this beginner on a horse in piaffe, and I was saying, okay, now feel this, just sit still, feel it. This is, yeah. And he said, where did you learn that? And I said, well, in Portugal, I went and did an apprenticeship there. And he said, well, no one teaches that way anymore. And I said,
Yeah.
that's true. They don't. Tell me, you are in the FN. Why don't they do that? And he said, well, you just can't find the schoolmaster horses. I said, but you guys are in the FN. You can create schoolmaster horses. You know how to
Yeah.
create schoolmaster horses. And he didn't really have an answer for me. And I sort of feel that since competition became so big, one of the difficulties about competition, as opposed to say exhibition, is that in competition you have to have winners and losers, and you always have to have more losers than winners, or there is no competition. So it's almost as if the whole way of training and the whole way of coaching of people too has almost gone to setting people up for failure. Because when I go to the average clinic, when I see the average dressage trainer training people, they absolutely do not put people on schoolmaster horses. They absolutely let people break their hearts for 5 years, feeling stuck, without ever giving them a window on what it should even feel like in the first place. Why do you think this is, Mario? Because you came from a really good, solid, old school Mexican horse family, where I'm sure you as kids were always put on really good, solid horses that the older generation had prepared. And that's sort of how I do it with my kids. Why is this gone? Why don't we see this?
I
Why?
think I I think it's the culture. I think the
Mm,
culture is that's how it is. Me, if you ever come to our place in a Maple Park, the gate at 45 right now, I think I that's what I promote. I try to build riders, create riders. Just like I said before, mentioned before about in order for you to create good riders, you have to put them in these horses that are it's a match for these people that in the beginning, of course, we make sure we do exactly what the Spanish riding school of the Real Escuela Andaluza del Arte Ecuestre, teaching people just to find their balance first on the launch line, right?
mm,
And eventually you start putting these people, once they teach them in a schoolmaster, and
mm.
then in no time you're going to have great riders. That's exactly what I do at medieval times, with these people that have no knowledge, but I think it's the culture.
So what do you mean
Here,
by the culture?
well, it's
What?
very hard. It's very hard for you to go to a regular barn, or and somebody will let you use their horse for a lesson because they have not just invest a lot of money, but
Mm,
when you put someone with no education in a horse, what's going to happen? The common thing, the horse is going to go downhill on the training. So,
no
but
doubt.
I,
But you don't have,
but
if you're a good trainer, you don't let that happen. You basically just work your horse in hand with a passive person sitting on top,
not
letting
everybody's
them
going to
fill,
have
right?
the
I mean,
mindsets.
yeah.
Yeah, not everybody's gonna have that mindset to do that. I have the opportunity when I went to Spain for the it was a reconnection for Mexico for Don Antonio Ariza, as a matter of fact, in 2008.
Mm,
And going with my cousin Roberto, he's really good friends with Claudio Castilla Ruiz. He was a member at that time of the dressage team for the Spanish team, and we went to his barn, and immediately, my cousin Roberto, El Cordobés, he's like, "Oh, can he ride your horse?" We're talking about a horse that is about to go into the Olympics, Jade, that he was produced by Don Manuel Vidrier, a Lusitano, beautiful horse. I was a tourist guy at that day. I was, wearing my tennis shoes, jeans, and in my mind, I was just going there to look horses. Never even thought that I was gonna be able to get on a horse and ride, right? So Claudio, without even thinking or hesitating, is like, "Oh yeah, get on the horse." I really thought they were gonna bring another, I don't know, another horse or something, and he let me ride his Grand Prix Olympic horse, Jade. And there is actually a little video there in YouTube that I continue to brag about because that's an opportunity of a lifetime. I
mm.
didn't have any shoes or anything to ride the horse, and one of his students was passing by, and he's like, "What size are you?" And he happened to be the same size as me. So he make him take his boots off, and I put him on. I got on the horse, and he gave me a lesson. That's the best feeling in the world, to have somebody with that confidence. He didn't know me. He didn't know if I could ride at all. And, you know, 15 minutes later, I was doing everything that horse knew with no effort. That's that's one of the most beautiful experiences that I have in my life, riding an Olympic Lusitano horse with that Claudio Castilla. And that tells you how confident, as a trainer, as a rider, as knowing his horse, that it doesn't matter what I was going to do, he can bring the horse back to whatever he needed for the Olympics.
Absolutely.
I actually got to see him at the World Equestrian Games over here in Kentucky in 2010. I was lucky enough to do the opening with one of our horses in the grand opening. So it was a great experience, and I got to see Claudio and Jade again. It was amazing, and that tells you
right. So you and I are both on the same page with this. That, you know, to bring people where they want to go, and also I think to make horses happy, so that they don't have to have heavy bad riding. If we bring people up on the schoolmaster horses, it goes better. How do we change this culture that you've talked about, to bring it back a little bit more to this older way of doing it, which I think is easier on people and easier on horses? You're a professional in the horse world in the USA.
I think continue to promote education. I think here in the US it's very common to go to clinics, which I love, you know, always promoting education. I think Germans, French, right now, if you go to Mexico, if you go to Spain, I think Spain has improved big time to, and I think the government has to do a lot with it, where they promote education. So everybody wants to learn. And if you want to learn, that's actually the most important thing. I think we all fall behind when you think that you know everything and you don't want to learn from anybody. I think promoting education, I still encourage my students. I still go and spend my money to go, if I have to travel to a different state or a different country to go and learn, that's what I will do, because I think that's what keeps you motivated in a way that learning is a good thing. And then once you learn, pass it to the next generation or pass it to whoever wants to learn. Me, I'm going to be very honest with you. I like to teach to people that wants to learn, teach people who really cares about their horses, teach people that really wants to. It's not just to, I feel that being a horse person is not just to have a horse. You have to know about horses. In order for you to know about horses, you have to invest in your education.
How do you find the time? You know, medieval times is a big show, and you're not allowed to suck, right? You can't having a bad day at medieval times is not a good thing. And I was actually going to ask you a little bit about that in another question. So I want to come back to this. But you yourself personally, how do you have the time to then also train other people at your farm and such? Because, you know, medieval times is so demanding. How do you manage this?
Well, I have the opportunity to find good people that love what I love. And when you do what you love and it's your passion, and you get people get, I think it's contagious, and you build a team. When you have, you know, people can say whatever they want, but I feel like medieval times Chicago has the best team. I have the best team. I continue to encourage my people. I continue to, you know, you just said it. Sometimes we have good days and sometimes we have bad days, but those bad days have to go to the past, and we need to move on and work even harder the next day to try to achieve what we really want to achieve in life, with the show, with the horses, with our competition. I think, and I built the same thing in my training facility at MC Horse Training. I think it's important to build and to find the people that has the same passion as you. Building a team, you can go and do anything in life, kind of like your family. With your family, you feel complete, right? And, you know, my parents were one of the big pillars in my life to keep me going and always to leave something for, even though they have passed away. My mom 13 years ago and my dad a couple years ago. He was 96 years old. And even until the end, he was so happy when I did a little demo, when I won something. And, you know, in one of my rituals, it was to bring my little trophy to him, my little ribbon to him, or my mom. And, you know, one of those things to keep them happy. At the end of the day, I always feel like it's important to keep, just like horses, keep riders happy, keep riders with a little, you plant that little seed, but this thing doesn't take a couple days. The horsey thing doesn't take a couple months. And if you really want to last, this is my 35 year with Medieval Times.
Yeah.
I started when I was 5 years. No, just kidding. This is my 35th year with the company. I've been here in the US for 35 years. I've been here longer than I have been in my country. But I love US. US has given me and make me to who I am, and I'm super grateful for that.
Medieval Times, as you say, it's been around a long time and the standard is very high. There's a couple of things which I find intriguing about that. There have been a lot of really, really good equestrian spectaculars. The one that obviously comes to mind is Cavalier. And I know very well the people who produce some of the classical horses for Cavalluna in Europe, which used to be a Appassionata, and so on and so on. What's the secret to the longevity, and particularly for Medieval Times? Because Appassionata has a sort of dedicated equestrian audience. But honestly, in Medieval Times, if you put on a show that just had a lot of fighting and a lot of action, the question is, would the public, which is not horsey, not an informed equestrian audience, would the public see the difference? And it's interesting to me that in an economically hard-nosed climate like the USA and like Chicago, which is a very, practical, bottom line kind of a economic culture, to produce a show like Medieval Times with that level of horsemanship is so expensive and time consuming for an audience that may or may not even know what they're seeing. And to maintain that standard over 35 years. Talk to us a little bit about that. Or do you feel that it's actually the standard of the horsemanship that creates the longevity? Because even if the people don't know what they're seeing, they respond to the aesthetic, to the beauty. Like, why do you think it's hit this economic sweet spot?
You just mentioned something really important. I know that all these shows that you just mentioned, that also do horsemanship and do produce these beautiful shows. But Medieval Times, I think we're leaning on that because we've been here for so many years. And that I really think that it has to do with the mindset that the owners of the company has, taking care of our people, taking care of our horses. And always, even nowadays, we continue to improve every single part of our company to continue to keep people, horses happy. And it's a very, very complete show. I think most people, when they hear Medieval Times, sometimes they think that, and I hear it all the time because at the end of the show, we always go and mingle with people for meet and greet. And people, they are amazed at how complete our show is, in a way that some people has that thinking that it's just for kids. No, it's for the whole family. I think horses create the huge magic in the horse. Yes, fighting is really good. Every part of the entertainment of the show is really good, but horses create these beautiful atmosphere that makes us unique. If you see the dynamic of the show from the very beginning all the way to the end, and what show you can eat and drink and party like a real medieval celebration nowadays. I know that there is quite a few shows there, but Medieval Times is unique, and that's what I love it, because it's my life. I've been there for so many years. I know that it's not mine. I don't own it, but I treat the horses and our people and our stables like they were mine. I always, when I walk into the stables, I'm like always scanning what's out of place. Well, horse didn't go out yet. I always, I want a full report of what's going on. And, building the team like a family, it's important, but it's important to have that discipline every day, and, with Medieval Times, one of the beauties that we have is that Medieval Times doesn't have, if a horse is, I don't know, sick or he's got an injury, we don't have a limit to bring the horse back to being 100% in the show. We take him out of the show if necessary for a day or two or a week or a year, doesn't matter. And if we need to bring him to the hospital, we need to do all these things. Everything is there. The budget is, there is no, you can't spend more than this. No, and that's the beauty. When I think when all these people sees how medieval times cares about their people and cares about their horses, that's what makes this company a beauty. Even with my little riding school, I don't have that kind of a budget, but some of these people are, very wealthy. Some people, I give the opportunity to some of the students that they don't even have the money to pay for one of my lessons. But that's why, these opportunities come to become a working student where, okay, you help me to shampoo horses, I'll give you a lesson. You help me to go to a show and I'll, little things like that, that will give you the opportunity. I never had the opportunity. I didn't grow up with money.
Mm.
Everything, I remember my first show for the International Andalusian and Horse Association, for the Andalusian and Lusitano. My first show, I only brought my little costume and then one shirt, and I used to, wash it in the hotel every day because I didn't know what I was gonna do. I wasn't expecting that. Nowadays, I'm very lucky. I save my money to buy, whatever I need for the show, and it's very rewarding to have that opportunity. And for me to teach someone that has the passion, maybe they don't have the money, but they have the passion. And that's what I see in the cultures. Like in
Mm.
Mexico, I see a lot of great trainers, great people, but sometimes I that's why I always say to continue to foment education and continue with that. With medieval times, like I said, it's important to continue to I continue to work there because I love it. I'm happy. I feel like, getting there every day and seeing our horses, that I get to spend years with them. In the outside world, every horse have their own owner. And guess what?
Mm.
Sometimes they run out of money. Sometimes they don't like what they see. Sometimes they don't want to continue with the horse education. They think what they have learned, that's enough. And at the end of the day, you have to learn and respect the owner's decisions on what they want to do in the outside world. With medieval times, we get these horses at 3, 4, 5 years old when they're considered mature. And same thing with the riders. And we work with these people for many years. So we get to know each other very well. And just like you said, it's important to keep riders and horses happy, so they can perform each day necessary to continue with the
Mm.
show. Here at medieval times in Chicago, in the slow season, it's actually really nice because we work with the show only on the weekends, only Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, which is really nice. We get the whole week. We get a couple days off, Monday and Tuesday, which is our weekends for us. And then after that, we continue with Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to work in some of the scenes that need some work, or some of the horses that need to be introduced to the show, as well as the riders.
I guess one of the things that I'm getting from what you're talking about is you have the luxury to some degree in this show of having an integrated herd, that horses come in and they're going to be in there with you and with their herd buddies for many, many years. And this creates a kind of a stability, which, as you say, when you're running a sort of a training barn, there often isn't that luxury. Horses come, horses go.
Correct.
People come, people go. We're very lucky with that at home with us. I've had my herd for a long, long time. And if a new horse comes in, that herd will come around them and make them feel good and integrated. Obviously, not everybody has that luxury. When you retire your horses, you said that you retire them sometimes around 18 to 20 from the show, but that's still a young horse. I mean, in my book, a
Correct.
20-year-old horse is just
Correct.
really coming into his wisdom. And as we know, the Iberian horses, they go on working until they're usually close to 30, because they have that morphology, they have that body that allows for this. So they don't break
Yeah.
down like some of the bigger
Yeah.
horses.
Well, no, we don't retire them because they're broken or they are too old. We
Yeah.
retire them because we want them to enjoy the rest of their life in a lot easier paced.
So what do
So
they do in their retirement? That's kind of an interesting.
Well,
horsemen?
we have two options. The first option, they just go back to the ranch in Texas, in Chapel Creek Ranch. They retire and they just go to the pasture. And if they have potential to become breeding stallions, that's what they're going to do.
Okay.
If they don't, the second option, we can actually find people around the area, people who has the place, the money, the knowledge to, they can ride them, but we don't
Give
want
them
them
a
to go
second
back.
career.
That is right. People who will take care of them. One of the things that you just mentioned that to me is super important for these horses is that we have the beauty of kind of like the Spanish riding school, and of course the Real Escuela Andaluza, and of course Portugal and in France, that we get our stallions. A lot of people that are afraid of stallions. I think people are afraid because they don't understand them. I think it's important for you. Most people who bring me a horse like, oh, be careful because he's so aggressive or is because most people isolate these horses. Me, you can put all the stallions together and you represent that main stallion. You represent the alpha. You represent who they're supposed to be listening to. You teach them to behave that way, but they must mingle with each other. Otherwise, of course, they can develop these aggressive or, always fighting or trying to establish dominance because of the mares. I think it's important for you to mix them together, not close together or put them in the pasture together until beat themselves up. We don't do that. Through work and, having a good understanding, draining that energy in a positive way where horses learn to mingle with each other without becoming aggressive or hating each other because they don't know each other.
As you may know, if you've been following my work, we are also horsey folk here. And we have been training horses for many, many years in the manner of the old classical dressage masters. This is something which is often very confusing for people. We shine a light on that murky, difficult stuff and make it crystal clear. If you'd like to learn to train your horse in the manner of the old masters and really have fun and joy for you and your equine, go to our website, heliosharmony.com, sign up as a premium member and begin to take the Helios Harmony course, which will take you from 0 to the piaffe, where the horse is dancing on the spot, in hand, on the ground. And then from there, you can develop out to anywhere you want to. heliosharmony.com to unlock the secrets of the old masters. Give us some tips. There's a lot of people I think will be intrigued by that. I remember when I first started owning stallions, I'd never had stallions before. So I went on a kind of Stallion 101 education, with people that kept a lot of them. And I went to different people, Portugal, France, other parts of the world, and saw how they were all doing it and got coaching before and then eventually I had a small group of stallions. Tell us from your point of view, when people are going to have stallions, what's the best way to get them integrated with each other? What's like the 101 that people should know?
Well, when you have your own breeding facility and you have the babies since where they were born, of course, the program that we have, when they are 6 months old, we separate them and they all go with the 6 months old. And then after that with the yearlings, and then after that with the 2-year-olds, and then after that with the 3-year-olds. That's when we start actually not isolating, but separating, that they have their own individual stall. But even like that, after that, especially right now, in my training facility where we train horses, and these horses become already like tigers because they were not used to being with others. Slowly, you start introducing these horses with the rest of the horses. It doesn't matter if it's mares or geldings. You start introducing and start working in the same arena as everybody else. But guess what? Sometimes they're not that friendly. They start rearing, they start calling, they start intimidating people or horses. Well, if you know how to handle them properly, you can start in the round pen with others around in the outside. So they start getting used to other horses being around. My advice is always to hire someone that can handle energy, because that's where you need to learn how to redirect the energy in a positive way. When you start getting aggressive with these horses, and I've seen it before when these horses come to me already extremely aggressive, where already they see you as an enemy, where they already see you as, who's going to be tougher, and when a horse already start becoming more like a predator, it's really hard. And it's very sad to see that, because it's very, I don't know, people think that they can handle, people think that by isolating these horses is the best thing to them. I think they're doing actually the opposite. They are actually taking the horse to a position where when people can't handle anymore or they hurt somebody, these horses will go to the kill pen because they were misunderstood.
Mm.
So having a professional do the right thing is important. And if you're gonna have, you might as well gilding these horses if you are not gonna become a breeder or someone that can handle these horses properly. I always feel that it's important to have a training program or an exercise program with these horses that are going to become breeding stallions. More than anything, as you know, it's sometimes just a status. They are not a breeding facility. These horses have never bred before. But if you take them the right way with exercise, these horses can be gentle giants. They can be as sweet as a gelding, as sweet as a beautiful mare. But you have to create that. You have to create that environment.
Well, you talked about redirecting energy. Give us an example. A horse is coming to you, he's doing some aggressive behaviors for whatever reason. You now need to redirect this energy. Give us some strategies that you use.
Exercise is always important. If the horse, like right now, let's say that I get a young horse that is extremely energetic, I think it's energy. So you're going to drain the energy. Most of the time, we want to control the horse to walk. We want to control the horse to trot. We want to control the horse to canter. And we want to control not just that, but we also want to control the tempo. No, 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 no. Just let them be horses in the beginning.
Yes. Yes.
Regardless if it's going to take you a week, a month, whatever. But you're going to see the results if you're patient. Patient comes with the training and always knowing what to look for. And sometimes, most of the time, myself as a trainer, I use common sense. I don't have to go to a book and read it or can read it again. Common sense. Just use common sense and redirect the energy. Let the energy drain in a positive way. If the horse wants to jump and kick and fart and and run around for 5 minutes, let him do it. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then you're
No,
going to see, if you're patient enough, you're going to see if you start talking to the horse just verbally or use your body language to put pressure, to take the pressure off with your body, or using your voice command a little bit louder, a little bit softer. If you are sensitive enough to capture those things, you're going to be able to see that the horse is starting to try to see that you're trying to communicate with him. And once you do, believe me, the sky is the limit.
I so agree. When we were in Texas, we had a sort of ideal situation because we had our own ranch. We were in control of the environment. We could do it. But we moved to Germany. And when we moved to Germany, we weren't going to just buy a farm in Germany. A, we couldn't have afforded it. And B, we had young children at the time. So it wouldn't have been possible. So we took 6 horses and we from Texas and we set up in a boarding stable in Germany. So public stable with lots of other people. First time in my life I'd ever kept horses that way.
Yeah.
And suddenly we ran into all the rules of the stable where you can't do this and you can't do this and you can't do this. Oh, okay. And then we were in this sort of really strange position where we knew more about horses than the person running the stable, but they were the boss. It was their place.
Correct.
And of course, we had 3 stallions, so we gelded the stallions because there was just no way that they would not have let us come to a place with stallions. They were afraid.
Correct.
And so we collected the semen. Okay, fine, they can be geldings. But it made us creative. So for example, the winter, the horses were barely getting out, and our horses have a lot of energy. Lusitano horses, lots of energy. And so we came up with the concept of crazy time. As you say, if they've got the energy, use it. Don't try to control it. So we would build courses. Our horses like to jump, so I would do jumps. But if it wasn't jumps, it could be stuff on the ground, but little problems for them. But then let them go and let them go really nuts in a group of 3 or 4 because they know each other and express that energy. But then every 2 minutes, I would change it. And they go, ooh, and you see them kind of go, oh, that's interesting. And they'd go nuts over that one. And then they'd stand and say, okay, what do you got next? And like, well, I'll change it like this. And then I realized you could teach so much horsemanship this way.
Yeah.
And then I realized you could teach special needs children this way. So
Yeah.
I would have special needs kids come in with me and help to move the horses. We would do team building because we'd build the course. We would measure, how high is it? How is the distances? Then we could measure with our feet how long is that long side of the arena, and what's the time that it takes each horse to go down there? What's the time it takes you, Mario, to go down there? What's the time it takes me? I'll be kind of slow going down. And the
Yeah.
dog, we say, and then we do a little calculation, distance over time. We get speed. And so suddenly I'm teaching math and suddenly I'm teaching physics. And I realize, oh my gosh, this thing where I thought I was so constrained has now suddenly opened the door to a whole program that benefits my horses. They can work with no weight on their back. They can work with no constraint. This can always be the first part of their day, particularly in the winter, where they're standing in a lot. And then we can go to the working day. And the horse
Yeah.
has endorphins in his body. And he's like, okay, I'm kind of ready to receive something mentally. I'm ready to receive something intellectually now. And of course, we also did a lot of trail riding. We always have done a lot of trail riding for the same reason. When people are facing these types of dilemmas with their horses, as you just said, they'll often try to slow things and create tempo and all of that kind of thing before the horse is ready to accept it. What are some of your, I talked about our crazy time thing. What are some of your like 1, 2, 3 strategies that you would tell somebody to do if they find they're going a little bit against their horse?
Yeah, we were talking about earlier about the disciplines that we use at medieval times to put the show together.
Mm.
One of the things that I do, especially with the stallions or redirect energy, is teaching horses liberty. Teaching horses how to communicate with just your body. Just like I said earlier, try not to control every single moment. Let them run. Let them
Mm.
do whatever they want. And then once the horses go, for example, the energy is in 100, right? Like they're full of energy and it's winter time. Well, you know what? Let's bring that energy down to 50 when you can actually start working with what you really want to work with the horse to learn. And so if the horses start getting like, maybe already tired or maybe you have to bring them from 25 to 50 because they are in the laid back, right? It's important to create that energy with liberty. You can reconnect or connect with the horse in a way that you don't have to be holding anything to control the horse, but using your body and using your voice commands, I think is crucial. And that's like right now, when I teach people how to do that, I think we're losing the aspect of communication, with humans, because we're not like back in the day, if we were in the caves or whatever, you know, have that sense of, oh, shoot, we're going to get killed or we need to go get something to eat, right? I think humans were losing that. And that's what horses keep alive to continue to use that body language. Some people are really good reading people. And I think that's what horses teach us if you learn to listen to them.
Hmm.
Redirecting the energy by just a simple movements or redirecting the energy just to try to click with their brain so we can establish communication. What we want them to do, just a simple transition from canter to trot or trot to walk, or bring him in when you ask him to, and stay calm at the same time. So it's a big thing, but I think the most important thing is to continue to practice it so it doesn't die. Most people, they want to learn to mingle with a horse or ride a horse. They don't really teach body language. They don't really teach liberty. They don't teach. They just teach them to put a saddle, put a bridle, get on, and try to find your balance, which is fine, but it's more modern, more learning to back in the day. I remember with my dad, we used to go get the horses in the pasture, and it was just like a and horses used to come up to you without you have to go get some grain and bring them. They knew exactly, but it's that bond that you have to create with your horses with time. Another thing that I use a lot for draining the energy, just like you said, finding ways to do it to me, working equitation, even though we didn't do working equitation back in the day, but we kind of did without being working equitation nowadays, that is becoming very popular and competitive all over the world. At the castle, we do these medieval games, all this stuff to desensitize the horses. Even though we don't do working equitation with any of the horses in a competitive way, we actually use working equitation in a way to build better bonds, to make the horse versatile. I think when I work with horses that just do dressage, I usually put into my program a little bit of everything so they don't get bored. So they are not sour of, all right, here we go. He needs to learn how to do changes. And I think sometimes just by playing around, they will give you the changes, or they playing around, they give you a little step. So piaffe, and you're like, well, they're so gifted that you over collect them and they give it to you just by accident. What you said earlier, when you turn horses out, that's how I do it. I turn horses out, not together when they're stallions, in their separate paddocks, but they're all together in the same not in the same paddock, but in the same spot, where you turn them out. And the first thing that they do, they jump around and throw a capriole. They jump around, they stand on their hind legs for a couple seconds. You're like, wow, this horse is extremely strong. Or they go to a little puddle of water and they start striking with that energy for the Spanish walk. And you're like, I know what you're going to be doing in the future,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You sort of put it in your pocket for later. You're like, thank you for
That's
showing.
right. That's right. A lot of people, when they see you, especially in the show, they say, oh, my horse can do that. And I go, okay, can he do it on cue? Can he do it when you, well, now when he's being nutty or when he's jumping around the pasture. I think the beauty through time, when you spend all this time with the horses, it's beautiful to see it when they listen to you being super quiet and you just give them the cue and they perform every day, each day, with the best of their ability to perform these exercises.
Mm-hmm. One of the things which I think you pointed out there with when you turn them out and they do all the high school Alta Escuela and a lot of the dressage just free, because of course horses do this when they play, horses do this when they mate, horses do this when they fight, just like people do.
Correct.
So it's in them. And I think that one of the things that's often missed is, the training scale. There's the often pretty shown as a pyramid.
Yeah, the pyramid of training.
They put rhythm, relaxation, was it contact, impulsion, straightness, and
collection at the end.
Right. That's usually how it's presented. There's a big word I always feel is missing there, and that's joy. Like, where's the joy?
Yeah.
Because these are movements that horses do when they feel passion.
Yeah.
When you are training, and a lot of horse and people behavioral problems, I feel, actually come from chronic boredom. Boredom it's a real torture, I think, for the mind and the body. So when you have this off the very program, as you say, there's a lot of cross training. They're doing all kinds of things. They're doing working equitation. They're doing games. They're doing the dressage. They're doing the Alta Escuela. They're doing liberty. When you go out in front of those 1,500 people who do not know much about horses, the only way it's going to carry any kind of make people feel that they spent their money well, that they got value for money, is if they feel a certain emotion. And the only way they're going to feel a certain emotion is if the horse projects that emotion. And that emotion must be joy and passion. What's your advice to people who've got horses and they want to do the dressage, they want to do that stuff, but they've been kind of hammered? And yes, we need discipline, but too much discipline is its own curse.
You get burned out.
Yeah. What are your secrets, Mario, for making sure that passion, it's there and it's evident? I've seen you ride. I've seen you present horses. There's always that. You always, you're selecting charismatic stallions to do this on. Okay. But even those horses, it could, how it can look, with a different attitude, it can look robotic. How do you make sure, Mario, that passion is there when you ask for it from the horse?
I think we have been talking about it, and that's cross training. You got to keep it alive.
Okay.
Most horses and not just horses, riders as well, that get burnt out is because they do the same thing. You have to have some kind of a mindset or brain to really continue to do that without getting stressed out, burned out, or whatever. But I think cross training, that's why to me, doing a little bit of both has kept me alive for many years in the business of training horses and doing this because I when I do competition, it's a little more stressful. I'm actually more nervous and stressed out being in front of one or three or four judges than being in
For
front
sure.
of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Which is finished the Midwest Horse Fair here in Madison, Wisconsin, and it was super fun because we always look forward to go to it. And we have 10,000 people in each performance. They give me a half an hour, 30 minutes before the rodeo, and do a little presentation. We did something that it was called the Greatest Horse Show, kind of like the theme of the movie, the greatest
Showman.
showman. And it was so much fun, and everybody was looking for it. We built our little customs, and it was so much fun to put it together. But at the end of the day, it is fun. But guess what? I really have to perform. So I don't want us to see people. I don't want people to see us as a joke. I don't want people to see us as a clown. I want us to see the horsemanship that it requires to do all these maneuvers. You know,
Yeah.
and I respect rodeo like you have no idea. To get on a bull, you don't just have to be extremely brave. You have to be extremely skillful
Yes.
to do the roping. And it's like I said, I respect every discipline, but I think it's important once in a while. We like to dress up and do like a Western day.
Yeah.
Like a cowboy day. We love working equitation. I have this lady that used to be a judge back in the day, and now she just retired, and she loves. Yesterday, I had her do the garrocha with her Frisian, and she was so happy. And she missed a couple times that little ring, that is on top
Yeah.
of the bull, and she's like, "Oh no, this is not going to happen." I said, "Just do it again. It's okay." And she was doing it at the walk, nothing fancy. And she had it, she got it. You should have seen how happy everybody was, how happy she was. And I think it's just like you said, to bring that joy. If you would have her just to do dressage and perfect that transition from trot to walk and canter, and yeah, it's fun and it's a lot of work, but it's not as fun as to just go in do a trail ride and see the birds and see the geese. And we do a little bit of everything. And that's the secret, to try to keep everything alive and do what horses can do. And that's everything. That they're super
Yeah.
versatile. They
They are
are,
versatile.
but you gotta be an open-minded. When you are close-minded, when the dressage hates the jumpers and the working equitation hates the other people. No, that's not it. I think we
Yeah.
are here. There is a huge reason why I'm talking to you. We have something in common, and that's the love of horses, regardless if you just like to do liberty or high school or dressage or working equitation or jumping, or you like races. There is so many things that you can do. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's important for you to have that mind. And I agree with you 100%, to find the joy being around horses.
Let's look to the future now. Where do you want to go with this? Where's medieval times going? It's kind of an institution now. And do you get back to Mexico much? Do you have a plan
Yes.
for how you're going to give back with all this knowledge? Have you got a bit of a vision for where you'd like to go? Is there a service aspect to this? Is there an unfulfilled dream? Talk to us about these things.
You know what? I think the time is now. I don't know if tomorrow is going to be there for me. The
Mm,
past is the past, and I have done what I have done. But I think it's important of course, I do still have a lot of dreams, a lot of things that I would like to accomplish. But at the end of the day, I think it's important to continue to maintain the legacy of my family, horse training and educating people as much as I can. Nowadays, now is the time. In the future, I don't know if I'm gonna live 96 years old like my dad. I don't know if I have no idea, but my goal is always to enjoy life and try to take every opportunity that life throws me and do the best with what I have and with the knowledge that I have. And if I can help somebody to fulfill their dreams or to plant the seed on somebody that has that little, I don't know how to say inquietud in English, but that you really want to, but that you don't have the opportunity. I do give the opportunity to a lot of people, and I have taught a lot of people. But at the end of the day, it's up to them to continue to make the best out of it. Maybe one day I'll just retire. And my joke is that I'm gonna retire in a little by the beach in Mexico and maybe buy 10 burros and rent them to the tourists and do nothing and drink coconut water all day. That's actually what I do when I go to Mexico. I go 2 or 3 times a year to still visit my brothers, my cousins. We have our own breeding farm of Andalusians in Teocuitatlan de Corona, Jalisco, and like 40 minutes from Guadalajara, Mexico. You are more than welcome to come and see our place. And it's a little town where everything is like very beautiful. You see the mountains. Our barn is built at the edge of the un cerrito, a little mountain. It's beautiful. You get to see from up there. You get to see the whole town and everything. And we still produce Andalusians and sell them to all over Mexico, California, South America, here in the US. But, I think there is going to be a time where when I go to Mexico, believe it or not, but I want to know nothing about horses. I want to just relax for a week or two. But I end up going to the barn. I end up going to, and my friends and my family, and we end up riding, or we end up doing. It has to be the only way for me to really get away is going to the beach. And sometimes we just end up renting horses and riding at the beach with the horses, which is, it's part of it. But once in a while, you have to kind of just take a little break and disconnect from the world where you have to be always on the phone or always worrying about making sure that client is happy, making sure that the show is complete and all the spots are there, all the riders, all the horses, just like at the castle. Or I have to have 3 or 4 horses that can do the same movement or the same maneuver. There is no such a thing as, today we're not going to have a horse show because the horses are on vacation, or one of the horses, the one that used to do it, he's a little tender on the front right. Those little things that we always have to be always aware to keep everything on place. When you work in the same place for a long time, you learn to find that rhythm and that energy to put everything in place so you don't get burned out. There is, right now, there is busy season at the castle, and we have shows every single day. We usually take Mondays and Tuesdays off, but after that, we have shows daily, morning and evening. And then right now in my training facility is show season. So we got the whole winter to prepare for these competitions. And within a month, we'll be showing, there is some horses that will be doing just basic training level, first level, second level stuff. We have a couple horses that will be doing Prince and George level stuff. And there is a couple horses that will be doing intermediate 1 and 2 and Grand Prix. So, and same thing, we need to stay super focused in some of that stuff. But it's important. Me, I like to take a break when I'm really tired. I like to go to sleep when I'm really tired. I like to eat when I'm hungry. I don't just, but it's important to have a good team that takes care of you and your horses. I like I said, I don't think without the team and without the support of my family will be where I'm at and continue to do what I do.
And it sounds like you run Medieval Times a bit like a family.
It has to be.
As we sort of approach the 2-hour mark here, what's your advice to people? This is something I'm often dealing with when I go out and give clinics and training. And one of the things I'll tell people straight up is, listen, if you want to get where you want to get to with horses, you need a tribe. I always call it tribe, because this is how horse training evolved. It evolved out in the steppes, grasslands, deserts, people in tribes living in tents, groups of families together, all doing it together. When you go to the top schools, you talk about the one in Jerez in Andalusia or Portugal or whatever. What do you see? You see groups of people training the horses together. You usually see normally minimum two, sometimes three people collaborating to create a horse. It's a team effort. And there has to be really good communication between these people. There has to be a kind of love between these people.
Correct.
Just like there would be in an extended family, in a clan. A lot of people, as you know, are keeping their horses in isolation. They've always had a dream for a horse. Maybe they couldn't have a horse when they were younger. Then they get a job, they make a little money. Now they have a horse.
Correct.
And it's them and their horse. And what I always say is you need to manifest your tribe. You need a tribe of people around you and that horse to to get where you want to go. And I have some little things I tell people to do spiritually, actually, to put it out to the universe to bring that tribe, because it actually always happens. But the first thing is they have to want it. And as you know, a lot of people want to be very protectionistic with their horses. It's
Yeah.
understandable, but it won't get you there. How do you help people? You do a lot of training. How do you help people find that Contreras family vibe, that medieval times team in their own backyard?
We spend a lot of time together. For example, my day usually starts at 6 a.m. We usually meet at the barn at 45, let's say the morning. I usually do the mornings in my training facility, and then I do the evenings at the castle. So I think the most important thing is to gather. And when I have, for example, a normal, typical morning, I'm going to have between 5 to 10 riders in the arena at once. So, and of course, and one of those is going to be the one that is going to be having a lesson. Most of the riders that I have right now, they're actually really good riders, where I just kind of give them the program of what I want of the morning. We usually have small briefings, but I think it's important to do one with the horse, one with the rider, where we start really understanding and getting to know each other, just like any family.
Mm,
I know that you can say, well, that's my son, or well, it is your son, but you don't know him that much like I do.
mm,
Sometimes building this relationship in a way that most of the time when you meet somebody, you meet the successful person, the happy person, but you don't know the other faces. You don't know the other
mm.
faces when they are sick, when they're mad, when they are uncomfortable with different
When they're
situations.
sad, scared,
That's
absolutely.
right. That's right.
Mm,
So learning how to, that's why when I have my little briefings, I think I usually do it at least once a week to put everybody in the same spot, and to everybody have the same knowledge, to everybody have the same goals that we all want. One of the things that I see a lot, big time, in this horse world, there is a lot of gossiping, a lot of talking bad about others. I
mm,
try to let people know that that's not allowed in my team. That's not. If something goes wrong, we all come in and help out. If the
mm.
show doesn't go as good as we didn't practice at the house and things didn't go well, that's not the end of the world. We can continue and practice, and it's always a learning opportunity when things don't go. Who doesn't want the little blue ribbon? Who doesn't want to take the first place? Who does at the castle? Who doesn't want to be champion on the tournament? Well, that's the goal. But it's important for you as a coach to maintain that alive every single day when things are extremely difficult, when the horse is not listening, when your balance is not great, when things don't go the way you want to in a competition. Sometimes we work the whole year to go to nationals. And when you go to nationals, you only have one shot to perform. And then the horse, out of a sudden, because he's a stallion and there is a mare on the other side, and heat, and the stallion picks up the scent, things start going backwards. Well, you have to have in that mind that, you know what, you want a stallion, that's what happens. It's
Yeah.
okay. But you have to have that open mind. And
Mm,
if you really think about it, you're like, I worked the whole year and I spent all this much money and things. Well, you know what? There's always next year. As long as you're alive, anything can happen,
mm,
and as always, is a learning experience, to continue to live life with the best of what you got when you have it. There is going to be days, like I said earlier, my future, anybody's future, you have all these dreams. And one of my dreams always when I was younger was to to build a school in Mexico that will be at the same level as the school of Jerez, a school that will be at the same level of the Spanish writing school. But for that, you need the government to be involved. You need people who really will do it pretty much for free with a lot of talent. I hear so many stories of different people. I had the opportunity to take the clinic with one of the masters in the school of Jerez, Rafael Soto. He came here to Chicago and to do a clinic, and you hear these stories. They've been working for the Real Escuela for so many years, and now he's doing his own thing. And sometimes you want to look for new frontiers where, okay, sometimes maybe, I don't know, I didn't talk to him about that, but a person that continues when he should be maybe retiring or having just fun or fun with his horses, he continues to teach. He continues to have to give in a way what he has learned his whole life in a 3-day clinic. I think you and I both know that that's impossible, but that gives you this motivation to continue to keep going and to be better every single day.
Do you think you will achieve that dream in Mexico? Are you talking with people about that now? Are you strategizing?
I have, but just like I said, that would be a huge dream. There is a school in Mexico, Escuela de Jinetes Domecq, but it's owned by a particular person. So, when the place is owned by it's just like any other school. I want something that will belong to the country, something that the country will be proud of, something that the government will do it just like they do in other countries that we admire, and but I think as writers or people who has the passion for horses, I think we have that. But I think it's maybe I don't have that high of a hierarchy in a way that I can. And I haven't even tried either. But to talk to someone who has that power to build something like that in Mexico. But I think that will be
I would say yet to that.
correct. You're right. It's something that always has been in the back of my mind, and I have talked to a lot of people, but it hasn't been like a project to me. Maybe in the future that would be something that I will be interested on to do that. In the meantime, I continue to do what I do right now, trying to do and try to have probably the best cast of the whole company, to try to have the best show for medieval times in Chicago. I continue to have my little riding school over here in Maple Park, Illinois, with MC Horse Training, and try to continue to enjoy life as much as you can with the opportunity. I think as long as you are healthy and as long as you have the privilege to be in this world, to continue to promote education and try to see if I can help just a little bit for me to help you to have a better bond with your horse. That will make my day.
Well, let's find out how people can do that. So, first question, how do people contact you, Mario?
Well, right now through social media, Facebook has been a big platform for me to show who I am, Mario A. Contreras on Facebook. With Instagram, same thing, Mario N. Contreras. And lately, I've been trying to do TikTok, which is kind of, believe it or not, but I was so shy when I was a little kid. And I remember when I used to go to pretty much anything, even to go and buy a pair of shoes, or I was afraid to ask how much they were, or I was so shy to ask. And throughout the time, it's getting better. So now me talking to you and being in front of the camera and just talking about what I love the most, which is horses and enjoying life. I think I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, I got kicked out of the country when I didn't have the opportunity to have to fix my paperwork here in the U.S. And I ended up in Guadalajara 4 years later after I didn't have contact with my family or my friends. And when you go back 4 years later, a lot of things have changed. So a week later, after I was in Mexico, after not being there for 4 years, Medieval Times contact me and say, hey, what are you doing? Well, nothing yet, but I'll probably find something to do. Well, we want you to come back to the US, but we're going to help you to fix your your paperwork to come back to medieval times here in the US legally. So in the meantime, we are going to open a new business in Cancun. So I end up going to Cancun. They're like, you want to go? We're going to bring some pirate ships from Cuba. And would you like to help us to open it up? And I was like, Cancun, are you kidding me? That's like the best place to go and, and have fun and all that stuff. Well, I was going to be there only for 6 months. I ended up staying there for 3 years working for medieval times. But this company, it's called the Galleon of Captain Hook. So I ended up being a pirate. We did something super similar to medieval times. We started with horses, with pirates taking over a piece of island, producing a pirate show with swords, very similar to the one that was in Vegas, with explosions, pirates jumping off the ship, a horse doing a little horse show, blah, blah, blah. Believe it or not, but that show continues very strong in Cancun, the Galleon of Captain Hook, El Galeón del Capitán Garfio in Cancun. And I was just recently there in December, and I was so proud to see it. And it's something that I created and continue to enjoy being creative in a way. When people tells me same thing to do little shows here and there, and I have to dress up, but I always try to do it in the most professional way as I can. I watch movies, I take lessons, I continue to educate myself in a way. And of course, I always like to have all my team involved into what I do. And that's what I think keeps it it keeps it fun. It keeps me going in a way. Maybe one day when I can't write anymore, maybe I continue to coach people, to teach people, or maybe I'll just do what I said. I buy myself a little house by the beach and I'm not secluded, something very, I love little towns, something that is nice and quiet. So something close to the beach, and maybe I'll buy myself a little burro and, ride around.
You'll be on the piaffing burro.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
Yeah. So listen, okay, so people can find you, Mario A. Contreras, on Facebook and Instagram. Do you have a website for your horse training that people can also go to?
You know what? I'm rebuilding it right now. It was mchorsetraining.com, but www. But I took it down. I felt like it wasn't really bringing the attention that I wanted. So I took it down. And right now I have this lady that is working on it and put it back together with everything new, with all my concepts, all my new material that I have, all the stuff that I've been doing in the last few years. But it's in construction right now, my new one. I took the old one down probably like maybe 3-4 months ago.
Okay.
And I just felt that it wasn't really doing what I wanted promoting. I feel more using Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. All these things are doing exactly what I want when I want.
So if people want to make contact with you, they can contact you through Facebook.
They can do it through Facebook.
If they want to come and learn with you on the schoolmaster horses and learn the feel and learn the old master's way of doing it, they can contact you and come and do this?
That is correct. And if you see on my Facebook page right now, I don't just check my phone. I have to check Messenger, emails. Email is really good too. But, usually Messenger, a lot of people, for some reason, on my website, most people, of course, I had my phone number there as well, my email. And people, there is so many things to check on every day when you wake up and try to see. But going through texting me, it's also probably the best, fastest way to contact me. If you don't mind, I can give my number so people can reach out to me. It's 630-415-9788. And I'm located
slowly.
630-415-9788.
Okay.
And I'm located here in Chicago, Illinois.
Super. I have some students in the Midwest area. I think I might bring them to your place and let you loose on them. That would be great.
All right. No, that would be perfect. Thank you so much.
Can't wait. Well, it's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mario.
No, thank you. It was an honor to be on your show. So thank you so much.
Well, likewise. I look forward to seeing you in Chicago soon.
All right.
And we will continue. Thank you for
Okay,
sharing.
I'm gonna start practicing as much as you can with the whole team. So when you arrive, everybody should be 100%.
I wouldn't even know. It's a Contreras show. It's going to be fantastic. They always are. I've seen.
Thank you, thank
Yeah,
you, thank you so much. It
the
was a
standard
pleasure
is.
talking to you, and good luck to you, and have a
Thank you.
great day.
You too.
I hope you enjoyed today's conversation as much as I did. If you did, please help us to make more. Please like, subscribe, tell a friend, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to support us on Patreon, please go to my website, rupertisaacson.com. And if you'd like to find out about our certification courses with autism, education, horsemanship, everyday shamanism, there's a whole range of cool stuff. Putting a show together like this is not an easy task. If you'd like to support us, please consider going to our Patreon page and showing us some love there. Even the smallest donation, it really helps us to keep the good content coming. So go to rupertisaacson.com and click on the Patreon link. Not to mention our excellent merch. Please go to our shop and check out some of our really cool rock and roll themed merch, t-shirts, hoodies, all that sort of thing. rupertisaacson.com, it's all there. I can't wait for our next guest and also to meet you there. In the meantime, remember, live free, ride free.